Alright, what's going on, guys? It's Vince, aka Veruxium. Now, we're going over the new Delve Boss rewards. It's a little later in the day, but it is March 28th, and we got a whole new Delve Boss rewards today. Also, hopefully it sounds pretty good, but I got a new microphone. I got a Blue Yeti. It should be way better than the old. I think I had like a fucking $30 like toner microphone. And then the one video, I didn't even use the right microphone. Like, I was using like one of the ones from like my computer or the face cam or something. It was terrible. So it sounded like crap. But we're learning. We're learning. The point is that we're putting out content, and we're talking about RuneScape, which is ultimately why we're all here. So again, new Delve Boss rewards from Varlamore, the Final Dawn. You know that already. It's like the third fucking blog post that they put out on this, but it's Friday. Happy Friday. We're gonna go over it. Alright. We're back with a final Delve Boss reward blog update ahead of polling. While we're sure you're eager or dreading to hear what we're changing, we'd like to take a moment to reflect on how things have gone so far. To say that nailing these rewards has been a challenge would be the understatement of the year, and it's only March. Yeah. We've learned a lot from our handling and your feedback on all of the back and forth we've had on these rewards, and have a few key takeaways for areas we'll do better in. That's lovely. Let's hear them. Find better ways of discussing difficulty/target audiences for content that properly set expectations. In earlier stages, it wasn't clear to you exactly what kind of content this was and who it was positioned for, leading to confusing conversations around a cape reward that could have been avoided if we'd come out of the gate with more clarity. Yeah, that makes sense. It's never a bad thing to work on the communication part of this game, and I guess kind of just to gauge where the community is at with it. It's not something you see in every game. Some companies will just put out what they want to put out and not really give a shit from there, but that's what we built this game off of. So the acknowledgement is cool, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as the video continues. Next, we have improve our screening internally for potential rewards so that we're sure anything we propose is something we're ultimately comfortable seeing in the game. We saw a suggestion for the Demonic Digger, Hardar, thought it was cool and ran with it, but could have spent more time interrogating how our proposal would interact with the ways players train farming, whether or not the resultant play patterns would be fun or lead to an increased sense of dailyscape, and how it could impact the economy surrounding farming. Herblore, and by extension PVM. Yeah, I mean this was kind of the major issue if you've listened to the bigger RuneScape YouTubers or streamers. The big issue with this was you could go and run up to your snape grass, insta harvest it, and now you're getting like the equivalent of like a maple tree or like slightly above a maple tree without really having to do anything whatsoever. So I mean, if you're doing farm runs on the hour to do this, I mean it's just not healthy. So it doesn't surprise me that they changed it to like that double harvest, but they're changing it again, so it doesn't even matter at this point. And lastly, we have be more proactive at tackling balancing blockades sooner rather than later. Yeah, it's a big issue with the shadow, which they talk about. I briefly skimmed this blog before I started. These discussions have made it clear that Tumikin's shadow has magic in a vice grip. Again, I said this when the Delve Boss first got rewarded. It first got like put out, and they were talking about the Confliction Gauntlets. With now you have to balance the shadow and the Confliction Gauntlets, which just doesn't work. It makes it so difficult. But I'm gonna restart. These discussions have made it clear that Tumikin's shadow has magic in a vice grip, which has loomed over any resultant conversations about magic reward space. It made it difficult for all of us to focus in on the rewards proposed. Yeah, that sums it up pretty well. Specific changes are incoming imminently, but before you scroll down, we'd like to thank you all for the candid and open feedback, apologize for the sheer volume of blogs on this subject, and more than anything, we'd like to reassure you that the doom of Macchiato is shaping up to be seriously cool. I hope so. Polls for the rewards open next week on Monday, March 31st. Be on the lookout. And we're excited to see another tough new encounter with some powerful, unique rewards coming into old school and push you to your limits. With all that said, let's talk specifics. Yeah, I mean, this is good to acknowledge. I want to just touch on one thing, and that's just simply the fact that they're willing to discuss these things, to make changes to these things, and then additionally, like, tweak them, just shows how good we have it when it comes to this game. I know things aren't perfect, obviously, and like I said, when the Delve Boss first got proposed, I said they were going to have trouble with the Shadow and the Confliction Gauntlets because it creates that big of like they said, like a vice grip on Magic, where now you're trying to balance between two things instead of one, and they couldn't even balance with just the Shadow, let alone the Shadow and the Gauntlets. So the fact that they're willing to, like, hear our feedback on these things, take it into consideration, tweak things, and sometimes even just straight up remove things because the community has talked about it, is really healthy for the game from, like, a consumer standpoint, from, like, them to us, right? So from company to player. So this, I know they go through iterations. Buddy of mine was saying, like, oh, do you see what's going on Reddit? It's like, yeah, I see it, but ultimately it is for the health of the game. And even if it's bad, the fact that they don't kind of have that knee-jerk reaction where they're like, well, fuck you guys, like, no, they hear everything we're saying, and they really do try their best. So I think from a company to player standpoint, it's really good, and it's really nice to see from a game that we all love so much. With all that said, let's talk specifics. All right, we got the Confliction Gauntlets. Remember the thing we just said about Timikin's Shadow looming over every conversation? Before we talk about the Gauntlets, let's talk about the Shadow. All right, there's no shying away from it. There are fundamental issues. Give me 1 second. Alright, sorry, there's a motorcycle outside. There's no shying away from it. There are fundamental issues with Timikin's Shadow that effectively dictate what we can and can't do for any and all discussions around Magic rewards. We don't like having our hands tied on this, and it's clear that you don't either. Unfortunately, we don't believe that we'll be able to make adjustments to a prestigious, valuable weapon like the Shadow and stick the landing on any changes alongside all of the other work that we're doing on Varlamore. We are, however, willing to make a commitment to you, so get ready to screenshot this and make sure to hold us accountable. Gather in Falador, grab those multi-cannons, etc. if we don't follow through. Yeah, I love the banter here. The joking's hysterical. We will make adjustments to Timikin's Shadow, nerf confirmed, before we discuss any future best-in-slot Magic reward space. We can't make any firm commitments on timing here, but we cannot and will not put ourselves and all of you as players/voters in this same position again. So it's something we'll absolutely tackle before proposing any future upgrades that might benefit the Shadow. Yeah, I mean, that's cool. It definitely needs to be addressed. I think, you know, they want to put these Confliction Gauntlets in the game, and ironically, I think the fact that they're doing that is funny, because it creates a confliction between the Shadow and the Gauntlets and future Magic updates. So the fact that they're going to adjust that, what they say, before we discuss any future best in slot Magic reward space. The only thing with that is it does say best in slot Magic reward space, not just simply any Magic reward space. So there's a little bit of a caveat there, but it's nice that they're at least acknowledging it for what it's worth. That being said, our band-aid fix for the Confliction Gauntlets was a tad divisive. In the short term, we're not going to be able to avoid a band-aid fix, but we do this in the knowledge that said band-aids can be pulled off whenever changes to Timikin's Shadow are implemented. Some players pointed out that restricting Gauntlet's effect to attacks within the next 4 ticks meant that standard spells or ancient magics wouldn't be able to benefit from them. This wasn't an oversight. We had some concerns around use cases like freezes in PvP, blood spell, healing in content where it's typically too inaccurate to be worth using, or potentially having to curtail elemental weaknesses to account for additional accuracy. We're not dead set on any of these being overly problematic, so we'll be adjusting the Confliction Gauntlet's passive effect to remove the 4-tick restriction and instead benefit one-handed weapons only. We'll be monitoring these use cases closely should they come into the game and require toning down in some areas. Yes, I mean, I think that's a pretty good band-aid fix for what it's worth. I mean, it kind of gets rid of that passive effect for the Shadow and any other like strong two-handed mage weapons. I'm blanking on if there's any other ones that come to mind. I don't think so. But I like that because it excludes the shadow specifically. And it does the job for now. Like they said, that they can revisit it, they can remove that, and that's fine once they do. But for now, that's definitely a good band-aid fix. That's all we've got on the gauntlets. Just a small passive change and a commitment to fixing Tunic and Shadow in the future. It's perfect. Don't overcomplicate it. Demon Spade. Pun intended, but we've dug ourselves quite the hole here. Yeah. To be blunt, we believe the Demon Spade, as initially proposed, was too strong, and that knocking its power down was the right call. I would agree. We appreciate that the notion of preserving skills or conversations around whether increases to XP rates matter or not is a hot topic with loads of people on both sides of the fence, but ultimately it's our responsibility to steward the game's long-term health, meaning we take this sort of feedback seriously whenever it crops up and evaluate it based on its merits. The flip side to this is that the version of the Spade we are comfortable releasing doesn't feel right for this level of content, which is feedback we agree with. As it stands, the Demon Spade sits in an odd spot where we feel it does have a use, but would have to be very common to make sense coming from this tier of content and thus be passively obtained in mass by players farming the more valuable uniques, ultimately making a negligible impact in the profitability of Osto Ayak. With all this in mind, we're making the difficult decision to remove the Demon Spade from the Delve Boss reward offerings. So, before I continue there, I don't think that's unhealthy. I think that's kind of smart on their end to acknowledge that it just isn't working. Excuse me, that it's just not working and make the decision to remove it. I also like, from like a company standpoint, the fact that they're willing to be like, hey, this just isn't working after your feedback and we're gonna just shelve it instead. To me, that says, hey, we're not committed to putting these rewards out and we're okay with putting it on the shelf or the back burner, at least temporarily or permanently, depending on the needs of the game and the health of the game. So to me, that's way better than them simply trying to rework it or force it in the game anyway. And then with what they said with the farming in mass, I wanted to comment on that. It just, the issue with that is now you're gonna have, Iron Men will still have to get it, but if it's super common, it'll be really easy for irons to obtain. And then on top of that, every main will have it because it'll essentially get the occult ornament or the occult amulet treatment. Occult necklace? I think it's the occult necklace. I'm blanking. Anyway, it'll get the treatment that you see with that, where you have a tier 92 best in slot mage necklace that it used to be 10%. It was like ridiculous. But even with the nerf, like, you have a tier 92 Slayer boss drop that's 400k that gives you like, what is it, like 5% magic right now. It's actually ridiculous. So I really think the occult should have the Slayer requirement on it, excuse me, to wield it in the first place. But I mean, and you could change it. I still think you probably should have that, just because even though it's 400k, like, it's just so cheap, and you can get such a buff for it as a new player at like low levels. So like, irons have to go all the way to 92 Slayer to get it. So I really think that they need to change well, to put the Slayer requirement on it to wield certain things like that. I think the same thing with the lance. It should be everything with Slayer. You know, you should have to go and get that level requirement. Even a whip, I would argue, you should just require 85 Slayer to wield. Like, sure, you can buy it from someone else, but to wield like the whip, the trident, the lance, the occult, like, you should need the Slayer level to do it. There's no reason I should be able to, like, as a new player, spend I don't even know how much whips are now. It's like, because I'm an iron, but like, what, a couple mil, and now you have a whip. Like, keep that progression of the game there. It's ridiculous. So I think this is good. Like I said, part of that goes with what I said before, where as a company, it's nice to see that they'll put out rewards like this and say, hey, what do you guys think of this? And the first time we said, hey, we don't want like a best in slot mage cape coming from this, and they said, okay, we'll scrap that. The Demon Spade, everyone said, well, it's way too strong. And there's some people that wanted it and some people that didn't, but they ultimately decided, you know, all right, we're gonna tone it down. And everyone was like, well, now it's too weak. And they said, all right, you know what, it just isn't working. There's no place for this right now. But they tried, right? They experimented with it. They put something out. The community talked about it, and now we're at least starting to have that conversation. So they're not forcing anything into the game. They're not forcing a narrative. They're just listening to people and making decisions based off it, which ultimately I think is healthiest for the game. I'm gonna start where we left off. It's never fun shelving content, but we'd like to make it clear that we understand the want for something cool that benefits farming, a skill which hasn't seen any particularly impactful unique upgrades since the bottomless compost bucket. Yeah, that's cool. We've seen suggestions to attach similar rewards to quests, diaries, or other content, and we believe that we will see something offering similar functionality to Demon Spade in the future from a more befitting piece of content. Yeah, again, it's cool that they're just experimenting with this stuff. They're putting out creative ideas and starting that conversation for better rewards that are just fun and creative for the future, even if this one is shelved. We believe the Eye of Ayak, Confliction Gauntlets, Avernic Treads, and consumable tiers make for a tight and impactful set of rewards which should remain in high demand and give seasoned gamers an incentive to risk it all at deeper delve levels. So we'll be heading to the polls with these for now. Yeah, that's cool. Thank you so much for bearing with us through this roller coaster rewards poll. Again, I think it's super healthy. While it hasn't been an easy ride, all of the back and forth, specific feedback, long-term game discussions really highlight the community engagement that makes Old School so special, and we're eternally grateful to have such a passionate player base working with us to make the best content that we can. Remember, polls open on Monday, March 31st. We'll see you there. Yeah, I mean, they're thanking us, which is cool. But I think we need to extend the thank you back as well, because there's no narrative being pushed. It's not, you know, this is what we're going to put out. You can give us your feedback, but we're not going to listen. It's not, you know, we're going to put something else out, but we're not willing to tweak it, or we'll shelve it, but we're not willing to tweak it, or we're not willing to shelve something if it's not working. They're fully open with, you know, putting something out there, like I said. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Put it away, or you can tweak it as necessary. But the conversation there and that give and take between the company and the player is so important. So, you know, although we're not getting the Demon Spade now, the conversation's been started, and it'll definitely lead to future reward space with something skilling related, even if it isn't farming. Although I think it will be farming, at least at the start, because of the fact that this was farming related. And I think that's it. This says blog update Monday, March 24th. So these are just all the questions. So that should be it. But again, for the Delve boss, right? We're getting the Avernic Treads. We're getting the Eye of Ayak, and which is a 3-tick wand, and the Confliction Gauntlets, which are going to be really cool. So it should be a fun update. And as always, they sign it the mods, the Old School team. So this was all, I think I went over this the last time I did the Delve boss as well, so I'm not going to go over that again, but I can link the first video in the description for you guys from the blog update on the 24th. But yeah, that's about it. Nothing crazy. We got a band-aid fix to the Confliction Gauntlets, and the Demon Spade has been scrapped. So, but yeah, that's about it. Just quick 2 changes. You know, we should be getting this Delve boss, I think, pretty soon. The next couple months, I want to say. But yeah. But anyway, for now, I'm gonna sign off. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. The quick little dialogue on what they changed, featuring the new mic. So hopefully the mic's been better as well. If you've been listening to the end, let me know in the comments. But I'm gonna sign off for now. Hopefully we get some new blog posts and some more stuff to discuss in the future. And I'll see you guys next time.